Hi all. Today we're covering an edited compilation of 2 newsletters I sent out in April in my series on spiritual perspectives on the pandemic, and I've edited these for covering what is most timely now and timeless. So the title of the first newsletter, Mother Nature's Bitter Medicine and the Deeper Game Plan Behind It All. I start with a quote from one of my favorite authors, Nassim Taleb, from his book Antifragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. Quote, "If there is something in nature you don't understand, odds are it makes sense in a deeper way that is beyond your understanding. So there is a logic to natural things that is much superior to our own. Just as there is a dichotomy in law, innocent until proven guilty, as opposed to guilty until proven innocent, let me express my rule as follows. What Mother Nature does is rigorous until proven otherwise. What humans in science do is flawed until proven otherwise." Unquote. So in April I wrote, "Greetings from New York City. I'm hunkered down in my cave. Still am in August. Enjoying a part-time spiritual retreat of contemplative reading, meditation, breathwork, qigong, and yoga, with some sunbathing and planting in my garden when weather permits. What about you? Are you structuring your day to allow for some quality time to go within and commune with your body, mind, and spirit? If not, perhaps you're still resisting the reality of what is, and not fully surrendered yet to absorbing the bitter medicine that Mother Nature is providing for the soul nourishment which it contains. Just as with any potent medicine, we have to stay the whole course of treatment to get the full benefits. Preferably without ambivalence. Most importantly, we need to use the power of our minds to optimize this once-in-a-lifetime FGO, aka fucking growth opportunity, by focusing on healing what truly ails us. Nearly everyone, to some degree or another, has been affected by the collective soul sickness of humanity for most of our lives, in terms of what truly gives meaning and value to this precious incarnation. To help make the best use of this gift of bitter medicine, 2 books which have helped me are one by Dr. Joe Dispenza called You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter, and the other by Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart, Hard Advice for Difficult Times. On the astrological front, the bad news, good news scenario is confirmed by one of the major transits of 2020, as optimistic Jupiter conjuncts transformative Pluto, who also rules the masses, 3 times this year in structure-ruling pragmatic Capricorn, on April 4th, June 29th, and November 12th. But it remains within an active 6-degree orb all year. This conjunction only happens every 13 years and was also in effect during the Spanish flu of 1918, the last great pandemic. Pluto, best epitomized by the goddess Kali, operates by literally annihilating operating systems that no longer serve our highest good going forward, after which new structures will arise from the ashes like the phoenix. And now, with cheerleader Jupiter in the mix, there appears to be much positive expansive growth for this in the probabilities, beginning by the end of this year when karmic teacher Saturn conjuncts expansive Jupiter, and then playing out over the next decade. But in the short term, especially between now and the end of June, as Jupiter goes retrograde in May and Pluto in late April, which weakens their effect a little, we're all existing in the inner void of emptiness, as external structures appear to be breaking down and falling apart, exacerbated and accelerated by the over-the-top excessive nature of Jupiter. Most lately is the dismantling by the orange baby of the Postal Service. We're witnessing all our illusions of control based on financial or medical safety nets falling away in real time, like the Postal Service as a safety net for mail-in voting. For more on this, here's the link for All Your Stagnant Comfort Zones Are Going, Gone, which I wrote when Uranus first moved into Taurus, comfort-loving Taurus. All links will be listed below this podcast. This feeling of inner stillness is pregnant with all that is, as Pluto/Kali operates by decimating and then, after a lag time, procreating again. And as we're in that lag time now big time, we have a rare window for awakening to our true nature as timeless beings in a human incarnation. From this realization, we may start experiencing deep feelings of compassion and loving kindness for all suffering, which brings a spontaneously arising, ineffable feeling of joy in being and pure aliveness. From the witnessing perspective, what is running beneath nature's bitter medicine treatment is a game plan for humanity that just may be the birth of the biggest collective awakening into unity consciousness, aka one being with billions of faces, in human history. Courtesy of the pandemic and the cosmic energies of the quickening, our hearts and minds are being blown open, much wider than ever before on a mass scale. For more, please read The Quickening Phase 2 is Here to Rock Your World. Ever since the 1970s, clients have been lamenting to me that they're afraid the Earth is dying. So whether their concern was on the issue of global warming, pollution, radiation, etc., or alarm triggered by specific events such as Chernobyl, man-made, or the 2004 tsunami, nature-made, or more recently the Fukushima nuclear disaster/tsunami, a mix of nature and man-made, I've always comforted them that Gaia, Mother Earth, can take care of herself, and that we should be much more concerned about what humanity is doing to accelerate its own extinction, or at least quality of life on planet Earth. But as always in her story, when things hit a critical tipping point of affecting nature too adversely, Gaia transforms into Kali and creates catastrophic events to shake us up, to wake us up, which is the function of the planet Uranus, who I call the trickster planet of awakening, who operates by shaking us up with unexpected events and changes to wake us up. As we witness the loss of many human lives and much suffering, all volunteers on the soul level, Mother Nature is rigorously cleansing and rebooting herself to sustain life for those that remain, like a dog shaking fleas off its back. These days, in addition to all the catastrophizing on the news, we're also seeing glimmers of the true longer-range game plan that nature is running. We're seeing satellite images of pollution decreasing all over the globe as heart opening to our fellow souls is increasing exponentially. Innovators all over the planet mobilizing to create not just vaccines and medicines to treat the pandemic, but entirely new delivery systems to replace the old dysfunctional ones, to channel more abundance for the masses on all levels, from health and wealth to healing our planet. Nothing less than the present pandemic could have gotten our attention and let us know in no uncertain terms that the jig is up and payment is due Mother Nature in terms of how we treat her and ourselves and each other. Wishing us all equanimity and faith in the flow as we take our medicine, bitter and oh so sweet, in this time of ramped up divine orderly chaos on our beloved planet. And I close this newsletter with a quote from Ram Dass. Quote, "The basic rule is to be here now. The rule is to start from exactly where we are at this moment. The rule is to be able to say about oneself and the universe, with all of its horror, with all of its beauty, with all of its imperfections, Kali in all her manifestations, it is all right. It's all okay." And moving into the second part of the session is a edited newsletter from April 22nd, entitled "When Pluto Saturn Venus and Jupiter all go retrograde, it's time to cultivate a taste for bittersweet going forward. And I start with a quote from Vigjing Jigme Lingpa, Apparitions of the Self, from his book Apparitions of the Self, The Secret Autobiographies of a Tibetan Visionary. This is from the 18th century. Quote, "There is no better fuel than sicknesses to burn off the bad karmas. Don't get into entertaining a sad mind or negative views over the sicknesses, but see them as signs of the waning of your bad karmas and rejoice over them." Unquote. Over the last few months, the pandemic has compelled us to place more focus on external conditions as they've been changing so rapidly. But with Pluto, Saturn, Venus, and Jupiter retrograde turning us deeply within, it's time to adjust our attitudes towards the new world we'll be living in by the end of this year. As we spend more time acclimating internally to our brand new normal in relation to others and our life itself, we'll begin to see more and more glimmers of light and hope about what is to come, which will help illuminate our way forward throughout the rest of this year and beyond. Cultivating a taste for bittersweet is key, because it is highly unlikely that we'll ever be going back to the good old days in our lives. Again, cultivating a taste for bittersweet, I'm reading this for myself, is key because it is highly unlikely that we'll ever be going back to the good old days in our lives. Many of the people, places, things, and circumstances that we may have taken for granted and become complacent about will no longer be exactly as they were ever again. So we have the next 5 months to stop resisting this complete reboot of the Earth plane's operating systems. Until Pluto stations direct on October 4th, we'll have the chance to release any clinging to comfort zones, which no longer serve our highest soul growth. It's not called quote-unquote growing pains for nothing. For more, again, the link, all your stagnant comfort zones are gone. So even though the pandemic may calm down a bit through the summer, well, maybe in New York it has, but not elsewhere, when Pluto goes direct in the fall, we may be due for another round of Mother Nature's bitter medicine. Pluto, who rules the masses and death, transforms into Kali Shiva in this regard, as does Gaia. Some of my clients who seem to have been karmically hit the hardest by the pandemic, regardless of financial circumstances, are those who work as healing practitioners in modalities which can really only be done when they can place their hands on their clients or patients. This includes those healing arts such as acupuncture, cranial sacral, varieties of bodywork, massage, chiropractic, and even hairstylists. These hands-on healers do not have the option to switch to an online presence or phone for their work, and thus are especially frustrated and experiencing more karmic stuff coming up for them than on average. This period between now and the fall is a time not just for hands-on healers, but for all of us to go within and dissolve our attachments to karmic ruts of identity through our vocations. So no matter how rewarding we find our work, no matter how altruistic and service-oriented, no matter how much meaning and value our professions give to us and others and the world through the ripple effect, it's time to let go of who we think we are based on the relative importance of our vocations to feed our little self ego personality. We're all in this existential crisis together. So as we witness and honor, perhaps for the very first time, the contributions to our society that essential workers are making, our whole perspective on what gives meaning and value to a life is undergoing a massive metamorphosis. In addition, as we give ourselves the time to go deeply within and sit in the inner void, the inner emptiness, we'll remember that we are energetic microcosms of the universe and contain within us as much space as all that is. Once we viscerally experience our true nature as timeless beings in a precious human incarnation, we could begin to value our essence as human beings rather than human doings. This can definitely be an ouch moment karmically, as well as a major FGO, aka fucking growth opportunity, for us all, especially for those of us experiencing financial hardships, illness, or loss of loved ones. Or illness or loss of loved ones. but nurturing an emotional tone of bittersweet for what is, as well as for what was and what will perhaps never be again, is realistically embracing the true nature of the divine orderly chaos of the Earth game in its newest manifestation. When I was scrolling through my newsletter archives in search of a particular image for this newsletter, I was quite shocked to discover, in a cosmically humorous way, that I wrote as a preview of 2019. So this is a year before the pandemic started. 2019 coming attractions, how to be in paradise during a cosmic flu pandemic. And I remember very specifically in writing this title, looking up the definition of the word pandemic to make sure it was what I meant to say, that it was going to affect us globally. I had no recollection of writing this, as I tend not to dwell in the past as regards my writings, but after rereading it, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that my suggestions for thriving during an energetically driven pandemic brought on by the quickening are equally applicable to our present circumstances. Whew. I've always said that pain is a signal tone from our higher self, that a course correction is indicated. First, our higher self tries to get our attention with pain or discomfort on the spiritual, psychic, and energetic levels. Then we get hit on the emotional and mental levels, and finally, in most cases, as the subtle levels are not uncomfortable enough to get our attention, we get a physical manifestation of pain and dis-ease. And so here we are. While I encourage you to read the entire Cosmic Flu Pandemic newsletter, link below, here are some highlights that I've edited to bring it up to speed re the current coronavirus pandemic. Quote, I think that all of us who are being affected by the cosmic flu need to give ourselves permission to be human beings instead of human doings. I know this may be difficult for those of us with overfull and busy lives, hectic work schedules, bills to pay, and loved ones to look after. But however impossible it may feel to add on more rest breaks and just be, with the quickening affecting more of us, isn't it better to wind down some of the hyperactive ego achieving horizontally and focus on more vertical communing with source and pure being before we're absolutely forced to? This also includes cultivating more compassion, love, and kindness, and less judgment when it comes to how we view those who are debilitated in their capacities to be doers by their cosmic flu symptoms, whether emotionally, mentally, physically, or all of the above. Yes, indeed. Here are some thoughts to contemplate to help support the upgrade in consciousness that the quickening and now this pandemic are gifting us with. Always maintain the witnessing perspective, which allows us to never take anything personally, no matter what is going on. Keep in mind the deepest secret of Tantra. Accept everything just as it is in the moment. Resistance creates suffering. Yes. Accept everything just as it is in the moment. Resistance creates suffering. The flow of life is not under our control. Our true power lies in how we choose to respond and move with it. If we go for healing and growth in any situation and simultaneously enjoy the ride, we'll have no regrets later. It's good to keep in mind that we're only on the threshold of the next great age in the sign of Aquarius, which will last for over 2,000 years. The quickening, aka the higher frequency galactic energies bombarding us, while necessary to kickstart this next stage in the evolution of human consciousness, is also playing havoc with all levels of our bodies, from the psychic to the physical. We're all becoming evolutionary guinea pigs in the vanguard of this new age. That's for sure. We're all becoming evolutionary guinea pigs in the vanguard of this new age. So how do we make the most of this particularly challenging time with its overabundance of FGOs coming our way? And especially, how do we best prepare ourselves to live in an empowering way in what can feel like a combat zone on just about every level, besides just yelling incoming and hiding our heads under the covers? That's for sure. Since there are infinite levels of heaven and hell, all available to be experienced right here and right now, we always have a free will choice to live with internal freedom and at peace within our conditions, no matter how difficult. So, if you'd like to learn how to be in your own paradise during this ongoing cosmic flu pandemic, as well as the ongoing now coronavirus pandemic, and allow inner peace to permeate your being as the major emotional tone of your day, here are some of my personal guidelines. 1. Paradise is always an inside job, and while you might enjoy traveling to an external paradise from time to time as a treat, you actually never have to leave your seat, but rather choose to travel deep within your own being to find that which you have been eternally seeking. 2. No amount of external flux can take away your capacity to experience paradise within if you make it your priority above all else. 3. While there are often mosquitoes in external paradises and upsetting thoughts buzzing around internally, we can still choose to reboot our consciousness as needed to stay focused on peace of mind and joy in being. 4. It's impossible to be in paradise all the time unless you are comfortable first with sitting in emptiness, aka the void, as this is the primordial space out of which all forms, including all planes of consciousness, continuously arise and fall away. Unquote. So I wrote that over a year before the coronavirus pandemic started, just dealing with the cosmic flu symptoms brought on by the quickening. Chogyam Trungpa called the above state of consciousness quote-unquote cool boredom. To explore more meditation options, please check out the link to my spiritual practices reading list. In closing, in the Japanese art form of kintsukurao, the philosophy is to mend the cracks and broken things with gold, thus making what has been broken even more valuable than before. So too will the buried cracks in us individually and collectively be healed by excavating and embracing our wounded humanness. All the karmic lessons that we're going through now, if we don't resist them, become the alchemical gold that transforms our heart minds. Taoists don't differentiate between hearts and minds, and make us spiritually healthier and stronger than nothing less than our present circumstances could ever do. And finally, here are my current daily reminders. 1. Enjoy the ride today even more by acting as if each day is our last, and smile. 2. Hold the faith that life goes on, our souls live on, and that which we have always been seeking, source, has been inside us all along, and smile. 3. Be grateful that life is doing its damnedest to help us remember why we are truly here, and just keep on smiling. Wishing us all bittersweet equanimity in the flow. In closing, a quote from the Dalai Lama. The universe that we inhabit and our shared perception of it are the results of a common karma. The actions of each of us have contributed to the world we live in. We all have a responsibility for our world and are connected with everything in it. May this reading be of benefit. Blessings to all.